Hello, welcome to Freethought Forum. We are representing more or less the Rationalists of East Tennessee and the Atheist Society of Knoxville. They have been good enough to invite us to speak to you. Today we're going to talk about Halloween and some of the implications in religion and in rational society, what this means and where it comes from. And I hope you will feel free to call in and talk with us and ask questions. This is an open forum for free thought. Halloween raises the question of ghosts. I'm Joe Barnhart.
And you are not a ghost.
I'm not a ghost.
Here in the flesh. I'm Mitra Jafarzadeh.
And then introduce yourself a little.
All right. I'm the minister at Westside Unitarian Universalist Church in Farragut, and I teach world religions at Pellissippi State. And I should say that I'm neither a historian nor am I a great expert in matters of Halloween, but I do think it matters.
Well, it's enough to get us started.
Yes.
By the way, in teaching world religions, Mitra has been able to see how various cultures have incorporated ghost stories, life after death beliefs, and trying to put these stories together to make sense. And talk to us a little about this, if you would.
Well, all right. So my approach to world religions, both teaching them and to my ministry as a whole, is understanding that people have needs, that we are human beings, human animals, who need to make sense of our world and construct a meaning. And we do that partly in the way we construct our rituals and our religion and the way that they, in turn, construct us as people. So this idea of Halloween grows out of a need that we have, and
the word itself sounds hallowed.
It does, doesn't it? It sounds like it's got something to do with the spiritual in some way.
And the day after Halloween is, in one tradition, is called All Saints' Day.
All Saints' Day or All Souls' Day, depending on what tradition. Of course, All Souls' Day comes after. All Saints' Day was set aside as a day to celebrate and honor the lives of those who were beatified, and then All Souls' Day was for the rest of us. Now, some traditions kind of did away with that first layer and go straight to All Souls' Day.
Since I was born on November the 1st, I like to think of it as All Saints' Day, but it makes my wife break out in laughter.
So maybe it's just a celebration of you. It could be.
Egomania, I hope, is not part of my...
I don't think it is, no. As a tradition, the Halloween celebration that we observe, what we say commonly, what people say commonly, is that it traces its roots back to Samhain, or the Celtic celebration of Samhain, which is, if you ever look it up, it's spelled Samhain, but it's like that bridge in Michigan. It's pronounced totally differently. But we say our traditions trace back to ancient Celtic or pre-Christian England and Ireland. But I would say that's a good story to tell, but I don't think you can draw a continuous line.
No, you can't.
I think Halloween as a tradition has had its ups and downs, its times of great celebration in America and the times when it's not been so celebrated.
Yeah, in some ways it's like Christmas. The Puritans apparently didn't celebrate Christmas that much.
Right.
We do, but... and it has different meanings for different people.
Yeah, but it's like Christmas in another way also, and that is that Christmas as a constructed holiday with a place and a date on the map, on the map of the calendar. Christmas incorporated pagan traditions and was constructed to give the Christians a foothold and a way of talking to the people in the community in ways that they understood. So if these pre-Christian traditions had rituals or celebrations that they observed to honor the people who they loved who had died. And then the Christian came in and said, well, what you're doing over there is pagan, and we're going to introduce you to Christianity, and we're going to overlay this idea of all saints and all souls. And then they adopt and adapt the existing on-the-ground traditions into their theology.
Now, all cultures borrow from other cultures. Let's talk about ghosts for a minute.
Let's.
I want to tell you a story that happened in my lifetime. A woman whom my wife and I were visiting, she was an elderly woman about my age, but this had been many, many years ago, and she said to Joe, Joe, I don't want you to tell my relatives about this, but this happens every afternoon at 4:30. My husband, who had been dead for about 2 years, comes in through the back door and says, honey, I'm home. And she said, Joe, do you think I'm crazy? Now, this was a woman I knew quite well and had known for a long time, and a woman of enormous common sense. So I said to her, let me ask you, and I used his name. I'll use the name Henry.
All right.
When Henry is in your mind and in the supermarket, do you buy for him roast beef and chicken and vegetables and take them home and cook them for Henry? And she looked at me and she says, you think I'm a nut? And I
That's
said,
great.
You have answered your own question. And that's called the phantom husband. And I'll explain that in a minute. You were going to say something.
Well, I think that part of what this holiday is about, part of what this season is about, is the reality that if we're alive, if we're living and enjoying life, and if we love people, we are intimately aware that they are going to die, that we are going to die, and we're left with the reality of being alive and enjoying life, and knowing that we will die, and experiencing the death of those we love. What do we do with this as human beings? Well, we make meaning of it, and we might see that the body has died and that the functions of the body have stopped, but there is something of that person that lives on. Now, religions have responded to this in different ways. Right, by different constructions of the afterlife, and that's good. And I'm passing no judgment on who's got it right.
But I see, some say the person actually has consciousness in another form.
Yes.
Others say their work and their ethical impact and their lives live on in other people, or in the library, or in the... my brother builds houses, and he says these houses will be here after I've gone, and they're a wonderful testimony. They're like mausoleums almost.
Yes. Likewise, the ritual that this husband created with his wife of coming in and saying, honey, I'm home.
It was meaningful to her.
It was meaningful. It was a point of connection and of true meaning. And I really am kind of tickled that you used the example of going to the grocery store and picking up a roast in his honor, because that is a tradition that some people celebrate around the Day of the Dead, for example, or All Souls Day, where when you want to remember somebody, you cook their favorite foods.
This is my body. Take and eat. This is my...
Oh, yes, there is that too, a slight little ritual there that's become part of our religious landscape. But there is something to that memory of
when a person has been with you that long, and then to have the life cut off, that's... Well, let me tell you another real event. And this woman here in Knoxville said to me, Joe, one day I was at the house and my husband appeared to me. Now, he had been dead a long time, and warned me about something that was happening out in the yard about one of the children. And she went on to say she went out and straightened out the problem with the kids.
So there was a real problem.
There was a real problem.
Okay.
Now, she believes that her husband appeared to her and talked with her. Now, I said to her, did he have clothes on? You see, the ghosts go around in the nude, or do they wear clothes, or do they wear... And she said he was wearing that gray jacket he always wore.
Yes.
And I asked the question in my mind, but I didn't ask her. Do you believe that jackets are immortal? You see, and
yes.
house shoes. And see, that would raise a very big problem. What, for me, was important is that her husband was a major part of her life, and I knew him. He was one of the best human beings I have ever known. A gentle, tough but gentle.
Mm-hmm.
He had been a major figure in the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a gentle, kind human being.
Yeah.
And I can understand her wish that he would come back.
Yeah.
Now, the real question is, in what sense do people come back?
I'm not the arbiter of all things real.
No one of us is.
No one of us is. So I'm going to defer humbly to her experience. If she says it's real, then I will believe her entirely. But I think that there is great tribute to humanity there, that she has this experience, and that she has an experience of him that lives on after he's gone. And that can happen in any number of ways.
Well, you put it well. It is real,
yes.
But in some respects, it's not real. She did not file income tax with him anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
yes.
And she knew that this was not the kind of reality that allowed her to file income tax.
So what we will say is that there is a reality of the heart that transcends both death and taxes.
Yeah, I would not say that this man appeared anywhere in space outside her. Mm-hmm. But I will say the impact of his life when he was living was so powerful that it was still this impact. And I talked to one of her sons years later, and I could see much of the kindness of the father in the son.
Yes.
In that sense, he's still
living on.
And he had an impact on my life.
Yeah.
And other people I know. He was a truly gentle, a good person. Mm-hmm. And you want people like that, their impact to go on and on.
Well, let me suggest this, is that he did not come from nowhere, that he was impacted by other good people who impacted him, and his relationship with his wife and his family of origin, the family he created, was probably so deeply integral that they were all part of him. So in that sense, there is no hard and fast, cold beginning. But we are all in relationship with those who have gone before and with those who will come after.
It's like a river that has a lot of streams flowing in.
Yes.
And we become part of the river.
Yes.
That feeds into the ocean and keeps.
And like that river, it's always moving. So you cannot stay still in that place.
Yeah, that's an interesting question about, let's suppose you think that someone consciously lives in the next life. Mm-hmm. Now think about this a minute and see what you think. Let's suppose I die and I live and am conscious, Joe Barnhart, in the next life, and I've been there now 15,000 years. Okay? And I meet George Washington.
Yes.
And who's been there how long? Now, is it the same George Washington? Hey, Mr. Washington, President Washington, General Washington, have you changed any in the past 1,000 years? In what sense are you the same person? Or you in the audience, are you the same person you were at the age of 5? Well, you're probably going to say to me, yes and no. And what I'm suggesting is part of immortality can't be just the same person existing forever, because to be a person is to change.